All right, welcome everyone. This is day 4 in our series, and today's topic is interviewing, which, like all the topics, really an important topic that I love to dig into. Interviewing can be so nerve-wracking, but it can also be so powerful. So today, what we're going to do is really address 3 different areas. One are the types of interviews, and that's going to be super quick. We have one slide on it. Then the before the interview. So how do I prep to really be coming from that position of strength? And then those common questions. And I find, we have tons of questions, and you can turn around and Google and you'll see lists of 30 to 100 common questions. But I picked out the ones that I think are the most common, but also that tend to make people feel a little flustered on how to respond to. So really quick, the types of interviews. This is not every type of interview. There are many different types of interview. The ones that I see and talk to people most often about: informational interviews, which are not formal. You're not part of an official process, but really powerful. I love informational interviews. Informational interviews are a great way for me to start getting a better understanding of where jobs get posted or what makes somebody successful. If there's an area where I can really grow, or how I can update and be competitive when I'm applying to those jobs. So I think this one is a huge tool in your job search. Screening, super common. A lot of different industries use a screening interview. Usually this is only a few minutes. This is like 15, 20 minutes maybe on the phone. And really the goal is to see if you understand the position. They'll ask you a few different questions. I've asked internally before, like, gosh, if we have a screening interview, what do you know? And I've been told that, within a few minutes, you can tell if someone's not the right fit. Not always that they're the best fit, but that's the idea, is we just kind of are able to start to go through and say, okay, this person isn't going to be the strongest candidate for this next round. So it's a quick one. A trend I'm seeing, which I appreciate, is that these screening interviews are starting to go deeper. So I've started hearing and seeing that the questions, they're throwing in a couple of really specific questions that I would expect on a one-on-one or an internal, like in the office interview. Other things that are common are those panels. So panel being, you go in and there are 3 or more people that are interviewing you at the same time. So all key stakeholders. What you might see, depending on your industry, is something like a technical interview. Technical interviews, they're asking you to walk through the process with them. They really want you to prove that you can do this technical job. Some even come with, here is going to be a test as part of it. And, we recently had some speakers on that, and, their big thing was they were saying, there's some minimums. We have to know somebody can do certain things and that, they're teachable. But there's also a lot to be said in how you respond to those situations. If you throw your hands in the air and you're like, I'm not doing this. Okay, great. That tells them a lot about the personality. If it's something where, okay, I'm going to show you what I have the base on, and hopefully those other parts of the interview tell you that I'm worth investing in because you can coach me in areas that I'm falling short. So always, even when you don't have all the answers, definitely give everything a try. And then behavioral. So on any common interview, you'll hear behavioral questions. So you might get a few that say, tell us about a time, or walk us through something, or how would you respond if? But if you are applying to a job and that's really the bulk of what you're doing a lot of interpersonal, you're working with clients, there's a lot of sensitive stuff, you're going to just see more and more of those behavior questions. So before the interview, how do I prepare to walk in as strong as possible? I think we always talk about research, right? But let's be a little bit more specific. So it depends on the type of company you're applying to. But when I'm thinking about research, definitely understanding the mission and the vision and the values. Like, what are they talking about? What are they broadcasting out? And you can look on a website, you can look on social media. Another big area is just fully understanding those products what it is they're producing or the service that they're giving, and then who's the consumer end of it, who's actually taking those services and those products. Something that I highlighted is annual report. A lot of times we don't think about this piece, but if you think about it, this is the thing, all the highlights that this company are saying, this is really important. And so it might be growth in certain areas, it might be loss in other areas, it might be new initiatives, things they're really proud of, awards. So it's this great packed place with all of this deep insight that really can give you an opportunity to ask very specific questions that go deeper into the company. They're really showing you've made an investment in them already. Knowing the plan, so the general stuff of route, what are you wearing, and questions that you want to ask. And, a couple things on this, and this is something you may agree or disagree, but I've been thinking a lot about in the what are you wearing? A lot of times I get asked this question, and the key answer or the given answer is, you dress as nice as possible. The worst thing is that you're overdressed. Rather be overdressed than underdressed. Yes, wear a button-down shirt, wear a coat, wear a dress or slacks, but avoid those dirty holes, jeans, sneakers, loafers. Really trying to say be as business professional as possible. Now, there are times where you're looking and applying to companies where that's completely not their culture. They are a blue jeans Hawaiian shirt wearing place. Or there's a place and you're just really not sure where they ended. Is it necessary? Or maybe I don't have all those things. This is the idea I'm mulling in my head that you can disagree or agree with. But what I'm wondering is, can you reach out as part of that preparation for the interview? Being able to talk to the recruiter or the human resource individual or the hiring manager and say, I'm so excited. Can you tell me what the typical dress is for people who interview in your organization? If that's not comfortable, once again, we'll always advise you to be overly dressed. And then the questions, I'm going to talk in the end about great questions to think about. But the thing that I want to tell you before the interview that can be your strength is I can send those questions in. So when I'm preparing for an interview, I can send them an email ahead of time, the person I've been communicating with. I can ask them who is going to be on that search committee or who's going to be at the interview. They may or may not give it to me, but if they do, I can email that person and everybody and say, I'm so excited when I come in, here's a couple of things I'm really looking forward to sharing with you. And here are a couple of questions I'm going to ask. And the great thing about that is I've already done my research. I've already showed I'm prepared, but I'm also starting to engage in the conversation. I'm giving myself another touch point to stick out. Knowing yourself, always being able to go in and know what it is I'm bringing to the company and identifying what it is I know they need to know most about me. And hopefully this has been part of your process. So when you were creating your resume and when you were creating your cover letter, this should have been a component of it to say, what do I need them to know that I am the best, strongest candidate, that I have that commitment that I will be able to deliver. What will I be asking? We can just kind of package this stuff. So this isn't the specific questions, but we know that it's all going to be about your relevancy for the job. Can you do the job? Do you have that disposition to do the job? But also, do you have that skill set? Some things are teachable. So if we're talking about that person who is looking at entry-level positions, a company should be expecting that they're going to have to do some training, but they may need you to have a certain technical base, or they may be focused more on that soft skill. We can teach, we'd be happy to train anybody, but in order to be successful in this role, you need to have these characteristics. The why I want the job, I think this one's hugely important. Ultimately, all these questions are coming down to risk and investment, right? So are you that best fit and capable, but also if I hire you, are you going to walk out tomorrow? Are you going to still be applying to a bunch of other jobs? So you want to know why you want the job, because I want to understand your motivation. I want to understand how we're a good fit today, but how we're also a good fit in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. And depending on the company, they have different priorities, but that speaks to motivation. The part about you, why are you worth investing in? What are you going to bring? What balance or what opportunities come? How do you create a better work environment? You might hear these terms about, I just mentioned risk. This is a lot of times when we talked about applying to jobs, saying if you know somebody, that takes away a layer of risk. You're already a little bit more known, you're closer connected because you know somebody at the company or you were referred in. Also, ROI, the return on investment. So are you somebody that I'm going to train and there's a return because you are going to be able to produce some volume that's worth it to us, or you're going to be there for a long time. And then USP, UVP, the unique selling proposition or unique value proposition. What makes you different? It's hard to say what exactly are they going to ask, but that job posting, the job description that you apply to, that is a huge key. It's your gateway to understanding all of this. And I tell people, and this one's hard to remember, but as you're applying to jobs, if you can hold on to those job postings, those job descriptions, copy and paste them, that really helps you out later because sometimes they're not available online after you've applied. Probably have heard this one before, STAR or CAR, but basically I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to be specific in your response. So not just saying, I asked you what your strengths are and you listed a few strengths. Nope. Tell me the story. If I say, how do you handle conflict? And you say directly, great. Tell me more. So I want you to paint me the picture of the scenario, what was going on, what was supposed to happen, what you did, and what the result was. Many times when I talk to people, and this starts on resumes, transfers over into the other phases, but the talking about myself can be uncomfortable. And they say, well, I don't know. I don't want to feel like I'm bragging. I don't want to be inflating this. And what I'm going to say is, this is all about information. So it's not bragging. And that can be a big piece personally for people to kind of work through in their head. But what I encourage is for you to sit back and think about yourself from the employer view, or think about yourself as a researcher, whatever scenario kind of helps you. I'm going to go with employer. What does that employer need to know you can do the job? And what evidence can you provide? So I'm not bragging, but I am going to tell you the details of what I did and how I did it. And you know what? It's nice to have teamwork, but I don't need to tell you everything about everyone else on the team because they're not interviewing for the position. You need to know how I worked within that team. You need to know what I can get done, but it's on me because I'm the person in front of you. So what are the processes you've used? What are tools or systems or techniques? What are those behaviors that made you successful? I am not bragging. I am being accurate. I am being detailed, and I'm being specific. And when I do think of bragging, I think of bragging as comparison. Like, I was the best in the company. Nope, that's bragging. But if you say that you achieved something, you won an award, you were the top in something, that's not bragging. It's information, it's accuracy, it's something that was acknowledged. So what about the questions themselves? So here's where I want to spend a few minutes. And as I go through this, I'm thinking about a couple of different scenarios. Like I'm thinking about that person who is the recent graduate, or the person who is making a major transition or a little transition. So these are kind of the things that are in my head. I have a couple of tools, and I will send the slides and the recordings out for everything that I've done this week. I'm going to send them out tomorrow in the afternoon. So that way I'll do them all at the same time and you don't get a million emails from me. Tell me about yourself has always been one of these painful questions. And this here is a great tool to kind of just walk you through that. And what I've done in the tool is I've created personal mission statement. So it's the little components of skills and things that you value. And it gives you a great place to just have a better understanding of, let me summarize this so I can do so in a couple sentences to someone else. Big thing with tell me about yourself questions. A lot of times people start walking through a chronological story. I went to college for this, I did this job, I'm doing this now, and they're just saying and repeating what's on the resume. When I think about the tell me about yourself, the opportunity that you have is to create the connections that someone else might not. And I do this all the time where I'll talk to somebody and they'll tell me that they're interested in 3 very different jobs. And I'll say, okay, what connects them? And the information that comes out is amazing. So if I am somebody who is a recent graduate, and we'll use the example, I'm a recent engineering graduate, I'm applying to an engineering job in the field, I did a capstone project, and I had an internship. Now I'm applying to that entry-level engineering job. They asked me to tell me about yourself. Some of the stuff I'm going to think about are the examples, which hopefully were also in my resume, but also let's think about who I am. What makes me interested and engaged and excited about engineering? And so now when I take this and I think, what do they need to know about me as a person? But what do they need to know about me in characteristics or skills? I might answer that question and turn around and come back and say something to the effect of, I've always been a person who is interested in how things connect. From the time I was in high school, I took advantage of extra classes and I led in these areas in the after school programs. And that really transferred over into my experience as a college student, where I jumped in to do this project because I could see how it connected in these ways. And that helped when I was doing this internship. So when I think about the things that, that make up myself, it is that curiosity and the desire to always dig deeper and understand how things connect. Or if I'm that career changer, and let's say we're making big changes and we're talking about, my example in my head is, a sales professional who has an undergraduate degree in the environmental sciences and now is applying to conservation, but they've had a significant amount of sales. So we're talking about a shift. Big thing I want that person to know is how I've always cared about conservation. So I might talk about, when I tell you about myself, I'm somebody who's highly invested in the environment. I've always applied conservation methods in my own home, but also in that volunteer work. When I was a student, I got very excited to see how I could apply it. And now as a professional, I have this wealth of experience in relationship building. And I'm looking at relationship building and mission and realize how much I can create deep impact and understanding through my relationship skills and my passion for conservation. And so all these are off the top of my head, they're flawed, but point being, I don't have to share a whole story that's already on my resume. I can give a little bit about myself. Why do you want this job? Should be honest, be able to look and say, what is it that really does interest me? And remember that there's probably many things. There's something that made you apply. And even if you're somebody who is just in a jam and you're like, I just need a job. Okay, but there was a reason you applied to this one over others. So understanding and being able to communicate back what it is. I say also think about it in a few levels. Think about the role itself and what you're doing and how that's fulfilling. Also the company and what it is you like about them. What will you do in your first 30, 60, 90 days? It's kind of confusing because you're like, aren't you going to tell me? I'll be new. I assume you're training. What this question is leading to is really wanting to make sure that you're starting to plan for this, that you're understanding, that you have already envisioned yourself in this role. So if I can be specific and say, here are the givens. I know there's going to be a training, but I also know that I really want to make a great first impression, and those partnerships you have are super important. So what I want to do is from the beginning, connect with these key stakeholders. And once I've created those connections and I've really invested and done a lot of listening and understand what it is, I want to be able to plan, independently or with whatever's appropriate for the job. Here's what I'm going to focus on planning. I want to be able to get feedback on that. And then we're talking implementation. So thinking about first impressions and who I'm connecting with, planning and what that might look like, and then implementation. Why should we hire you? This is that unique selling proposition. So it can feel uncomfortable because it goes back to the, am I bragging? Nope, it's information. So what talents, what can you walk in there and deliver? What connections, what disposition? Are you somebody who is super enthusiastic? Are you somebody who is more reserved and consistent? Are you that detail-oriented person? The big thing is, why should we hire you? I want to tie back to the job description. So not just throwing out how great and charismatic I am, but how the skills are going to directly benefit, how they directly respond to that job description. Strengths and weaknesses, I'm going to put them in the same box. It's really all about the storytelling here. So people always feel, I don't want to brag once again with strengths. With weaknesses, is there a good weakness? Weaknesses doesn't feel good. Strengths, it is my chance. So when I walk into that interview and I go, I'm preparing and I go, what do they need to know about me? The strengths get to tell the story. So I get to go back and say, once again, I wanted you to know about my connection. So maybe one of my strengths is knowledge in the field. Let me tell you more about it. Maybe it is the relationship building. Let me give you an example. All about examples. Weaknesses is awareness and planning. So with a weakness, everyone has weaknesses. And yes, we don't want to go in and discuss that we have a violent temper or we're super undependable, but there needs to be an awareness. And if it is, in the past, I have taken on extra projects. And what I've had to do, so here's the issue, and I think a lot of us can identify, you want to say yes. And I can explain that. I want to say yes, I want to be a team builder, but I recognize every time I say yes to a project, it means I'm saying no to something else I need to get done. And here's where the plan comes in. So here's the issue, I'm aware of it. Here's how it's impacted, and here is my plan to address it. Here's how I've been addressing it. And whether that is, I take on too many projects. So what I've done is become very organized with how much time I need. And I want to do extra things as I can, and I have to check back. So I have learned to ask for time to think about something, review the time I have available, and then get back to the person. Or I'm really shy, and I've learned that it works really well when I get to know the staff one-on-one, and then I can work well as a team. Why did you leave your last job? Key here is not tough balance. You want to be true, you want to be accurate, but also you don't want to speak negatively. A lot of us have had some sort of negative experience, and there's a reason we are leaving any job, and whether that is there's just an opportunity that's better, and that's okay to say. You can say, I like my job. I like all these different parts of it. However, your company is one I've been following for a long time, and this is where I see myself growing. So I don't have to, speak negatively. I can speak truthfully and positive. If there is a really important key reason, like we'll say that I talk to a lot of people about growth. I want growth opportunities. You can say, I really like these parts about my company. So once again, positive. However, I don't have an opportunity to grow within the organization or to grow within my profession in time and space and knowledge. And so in my next role, that's one of the things that's really important to me. Where do you see yourself in X years? Once again, can be kind of tricky, but of course, they want you to focus on them. So are you somebody who is planning on sticking around and growing? And what I would think about is, can you truly see yourself growing in that field, growing in that company? If not, then let me talk more about a skill set that I know they value, that I'm going to keep growing, and how it applies to them in the immediate future. Transitions and gaps. So for somebody who is transitioning, a career changing, somebody who has had a gap on that resume or that information, when describing it, once again, what's not changing? So what are the things that are consistent? If it's always been that common thread that you are a systems person and everywhere I go, I'm able to organize, structure, and create systems. And this is how I'm going to help you with that. If it's a gap, then it's thinking about, what did I do? So sometimes I have people who truly were completely unable to do anything during a gap. Many times I have people who are doing something. So they might have been in a caregiving role, they might have been volunteering in a group, they might have been reinvesting in their education. Those are things that I want to discuss. I want them to know that I've stayed connected in some way. So this is a quick overview. Once again, the tools, I really like this as a mission statement to help clarify in my mind what's really important to me and what I want to talk about. This other resource I have linked is to Glassdoor. And what this one is highlighting are people who have shared interview questions that they've gotten from some companies. So I think that's a very helpful tool. When answering the question, all the basics that we tell you, yes, I need to feel good in what I'm wearing, but focusing on those outcomes, focusing on that impact. I want to take my time. I don't need to rush through this. And the little differences that we can feel in like just taking a breath. So a lot of times in interviews, we feel like someone asked me and I have to respond and I'm moving quick. But if I take a breath in between, that can be just enough time. Or if I say something like, that's a really interesting question. Or if I just need to write something down, especially if they say, give me 3 strengths. Well, let me write down those 3 before I respond. So I make sure I'm giving an example and respond to each one instead of being all over the place. If the question is asked, and this is one I see all the time, is I get asked a question, but really I'm getting asked 4 questions. So that one question has piece after piece after piece all packed into it. And you're like, I don't know which one to answer first. I can ask for clarification. If it's just, I'm not even sure what they're asking for, great. Let me get a little bit more feedback. If I hear this question, there's 4 questions, I can say that, okay, I see 4 important questions in what you're asking. Can I break this down and work with them? Because chances are they have it kind of written out, or if they're doing it off the top of their head, they have to rethink it. Using the examples which we've talked about, and then the body language, the back straight, the eye contact. I have an example here with Amy Cuddy, and I have a link there. Like her, she talks a lot about how you stand and how that changes the physical response inside you, how it can make you feel way more nervous or how it can put you in a position of strength. So that's an interesting video, really quick. The standing up. So here's one of the strengths right now. Video interviewing is one of the most common. And if we're talking about posturing and feeling strong, you might feel stronger standing up. I'm standing up right now because it helps me project better. I feel like I speak more clearly. If that helps me, then, and I'm doing a video interviewing, I can set that scenario up for my success. And nobody's going to know I'm standing. And if they do, that's fine. I'm home, I'm standing. I have the conditions that are best for me. Questions you ask. So this will be one of my last slide, and then just a couple of quick information. What you really want to know. So, I mean, there's times where we are, once again, in that emergency, I just need to get a position, fine. There are other times we're going, I'm really focused on career. It's really important to me that this organization has whatever. If it's an opportunity, if it's, growth, if it's a culture piece, but ask what you really want to know. Of course, we ask it in a non-confrontational way. And I can do that by saying, here's something that's really important to me. Can you tell me how you do it? So here's something that's really important to me is inclusion. Can you tell me about your inclusion practices here? Here's something that's really important to me, which is growth in an organization. Tell me how your staff grows. Here's something that's really important to me. I like to be able to try new things. How does your management support that? And once again, I'm running the risk that they might say, we don't. But if I'm truly in this, I need the right fit, then that's very important information. Going deep when they say ask us questions, think about the things, once again, that really you're curious about, and some other things beyond what we just discussed. But are there gaps in your team? How do you manage, or how do you document success? What are you looking for this person to be able to come in? What are those absolutely priority skills a person has to bring? Where is your company growing? Tell me more about your team. This is my chance to dig in and get a little more information. Thing I had already mentioned, send your questions ahead of time, so that way they're prepared and they know you already have invested. And then one last tip is ask for their names. So I don't dig in here, but thank you notes are big. And if you have a group interview, being able to say thank you to all of them really is a way to stand out. And that's going to be tough if we don't know like first names, last names. Yes, we can go to the website, but it depends how they do their team. A lot of times people ask, does it have to be a letter, or should I do an email? I would tell you decisions usually get made pretty quickly. I would definitely do email to be able to respond quickly and make sure I'm on their mind. But if it is your style, or if it is something that's really above and beyond in the industry, like you're in a really customer service type role, feel free to handwrite it too. I just want to make sure I don't miss the window of opportunity. So I would recommend email. If you want to go above and beyond, then yeah, absolutely write a handwritten note. Quick resources, things that you can go back to. CCEE has an interview module, so walking you through the process, which is a great resource. The Alumni Career Services has more resources that are available. All the links are included. Handshake is great for connecting with employers, including we have a engineering and tech fair coming up next week. URI Career Connect is newer. We launched this last fall, and this has about 1,200 URI alumni who are saying, talk to me. So they're in all different fields and they want to engage. And then our last session will be tomorrow at noon, and this is going to be on graduate school. Very, very, very lastly, if you say, this is great, but I want to talk more and give me someone to talk one-on-one with, everyone in our URI community has access to somebody. So alumni have Karen Rabano, and that's her email address. Graduate students have Karen Mitnick, who's the Director of Professional Studies and Development. And undergraduate students, depending on what your major is, you have a career education specialist, all available to you.